Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the session called Cities Moving Forward on Clean Energy. I'm glad to have here great panelists which are going to explain very exciting projects from different parts around the world. Unfortunately, we miss one panelist from Fukuoka. I don't know whether it's due to the street sink they just had a couple of days ago, but we wish them best luck, and we see that they're really good providing solutions and repairing that. So in first place, I'm going to introduce our speakers. In the first place, we have Mr. Santiago Creuheras from Mexico. Santiago is Director General for Energy Efficiency and Energy Sustainability of Ministry of Energy of Mexico. Then we have Mr. Eduard Oró from Catalan Institute of Energy Research. Eduard is coordinating IREC projects on green IT, and he's going to explain us their nice project. Mr. Miguel Ángel García from CARTIF, also Research Institute from Valladolid, from Spain. Miguel Ángel is RTD project coordinator for smart cities. They have a lighthouse project, also very interesting for us and for future of the cities. And then Miss Vera Nunes, coming from Portugal, from EDP. She's business manager for business development for smart cities and communities project. Vera is also going to explain us a very exciting project about the community involvement in energy efficiency. I'm glad also to point just that when we talk about clean energy, we are not only talking about renewables, which is just the first idea people is having in mind. Here we are going to hear much more about energy efficiency, which is the first, easiest and more profitable way to push clean energy in our cities. So Santiago, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Alex, for introducing us. It's a great honor to be here on behalf of Mexico and to share some ideas of what Mexico has been doing for the past few months and a couple of years now in regards to a very important energy reform that the country has developed. And I'm happy to share these ideas with all of you, as well as with the panel that I have the opportunity to participate in this morning. I really want to thank Smart City Expo, especially Pilar Conesa, for the invitation to be here. And I would like to get started talking about the energy reform. As you probably know, Mexico was one of the few countries that had not had an energy reform. It was one of the few countries that had not opened to the private markets. And one of the areas of opportunity that Mexico has opened the markets for in the energy sector is the energy transition sector. For that, we have had new regulations in regards to energy efficiency and energy renewables. We are aiming at having, for the very first time, a strategy that will last for more than 30 years. And this is the very first time that the energy sector in Mexico has very specific goals, both for renewables and for energy efficiency. In regards to that, this strategy, I should say, is mainly based on four elements. The first one is energy production. The second one is energy consumption. The third one is energy efficiency. And the fourth one is energy storage. One of the areas of opportunity now for countries is to develop schemes for energy storage. That's one of the ideas that Mexico has been trying to work on for the past few months. And we expect this to be a great area for opportunity within Mexico. I should also say that we have worked on renewables goal. We expect to have 35% of clean energy generation in Mexico in the next 30 years. So far, this administration, which is finishing in 2018, will aim at having at least 25%, which is an important goal for an emerging economy. And in terms of efficiency, we aim at reducing 42% our energy intensity in the next 30 years. So that's also an important goal. Now I'm going to switch to the part in which I would like to share with you some of the ideas of what we are doing in regards to cities. The energy sector, as I mentioned, was mainly federal. There was no connection between the states and the federal government for the energy sector. There was no connection with the local governments. And as of the energy reform, we have been working on ways, on schemes of doing this. At first, we started working on a project in which we tried to exchange the electric appliances and the light bulbs in Mexico. Currently, we are aiming at exchanging 42 million light bulbs in rural areas. That's one of the greatest programs that the world has ever had in terms of exchanging light bulbs. We are also working on housing development, mainly for existing housing, in which we are trying to bring energy efficient technologies for existing housing. And the third one, which is the one I'm going to spend a little bit more of time talking about, it's an innovative project that we have been designing with the World Bank in terms of exchanging inefficient technologies for efficient ones in cities. This is a project that mainly considers not just one technology, but the use of different technologies, the importance of having collective action within cities in exchanging inefficient technologies for efficient ones. I should say that in Mexico we have over 120 million, and we expect this number to increase in the next few years. By the end of the next decade, we expect this number to increase in about 15%. And the same pattern holds not only for Mexico, but for the rest of Latin America. We expect this number to increase. About 8 out of 10 people live in cities. This number should reach about 9 out of 10 of the population by the end of the next decade. And therefore it was necessary to work on a project that allowed us to tackle some of the inefficiencies within cities. The idea is to have an energy efficiency potential assessment with a tool that has been developed with the World Bank. It's called TRACE, and this tool mainly concentrates on water pumping, public lighting, transportation, water sewage, and energy efficiency in buildings. So the idea is to have an assessment of what are the main areas of opportunity, the main projects that we have to develop within those cities. And once we have that, we want to go to the second element of the project, in which we aim at developing capacity. It is really important for the Ministry of Energy in Mexico not just to have interventions within the cities that do not signify anything. We really want to work with the public officials in terms of developing capacity, in terms of making sure that the change of behavior not only comes from the rest of the ministry, but also from the communities. And obviously we need the officers to change their minds, to understand why energy efficiency is important, to understand why the use of clean energies is important, so they serve as catalyzers for doing that. And the third element is mainly about an important financial mechanism that allows for these interventions to happen, to be implemented, so that we don't end up with a whole bunch of binders and we just keep them in a drawer. That's really, really important. So we believe that an enhancement of these three elements is what is going to allow for Mexico to have a different model for energy efficiency in cities. So far, we have developed the assessments for more than 32 cities in Mexico. So that's an important number to mention so far, so that the tool that has been designed with the World Bank has only managed to do about 70 assessments so far, and basically half of them have been done in Mexico. And these results have the importance of being standardized, so they are comparable with the rest of the cities in the world. And now we are conducting the energy audits in 4 of these cities, so that some of the first projects can be developed. And we are also working with some of the participating cities in the capacity building development of the projects. I guess I've run out of time. I'll have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about this when we have the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Santiago. We have a next presentation. I'm not sure, because in my documentation now it's Eduardo. Here in the screen we have Miguel Ángel. So who is the next for the slides? In the meanwhile, let me just comment that we have this nice app called Ask and Vote. So we would prefer you after our speakers to take mic and to comment directly your questions. But if you're shy or you're uncomfortable, you can also use Ask and Vote and put your questions or comments. So, Eduard, Miguel.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I thought I was the next one, so I was more relaxed. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Alex, for this presentation, and thank you very much, of course, to the organization for inviting me and for allowing us to present this project that I will be presenting today, that is RemoUrban, in which we are working in different cities in Europe that I will be explaining throughout this presentation, in order to transform them, to allow them becoming smarter and more sustainable, working mainly on the energy efficiency field through a European funded project that is named RemoUrban. My name is Miguel García. I'm the project coordinator of this project. I'm working for Fundacion CARTIF, which is a research institution based in Valladolid. So before starting, I usually start always with this picture, in this sentence, that for me are defining somehow the 2 main overarching goals that we have, or overarching concepts that in which we are working in this project. So the sentence is more or less stating that cities are very complex environments, and in the cities we have different connections, and if we can act on the cities and we can transform the cities in order to make these environments smarter and more sustainable. The other one, the picture that seems to be showing the lightings in Europe during the night, actually is not. Actually, what this picture is representing is an infographic that was made by an artist that is representing with all these dots, and I don't know if you can hear me properly with all this, that is representing with all these dots the quantity of data, the amount of data that is generated by the citizens through the use of social media, so through the use of Instagram, Facebook, and so on. on. So here we can see how the city is generating a lot of data, and especially the people, and this links to this big message, that is that somehow data is the new oil. So we need to find how to gather all this data that we have in the cities, how to refine this data, and how to work on providing services based on this data that we are generating, not only for the cities, but for the city itself, but also for other cities, in order to allow other cities learning on the processes that are happening in our city. So our challenge is on, at the end, working on transforming these complex environments and working with all the data that the cities are generating in order to transform these environments into smarter and more sustainable places to live and work. So this is the main objective that we have in Remo Urban, which is named by the European Commission a lighthouse project. And let me say that this name is not in vain, because actually we are a kind of lighthouses, or this is the objective that we have in the project. So to show to other cities in Europe how they can be transformed through showing the results of the actions that we are implementing in our lighthouse cities, and to provide this guidance, as the lighthouses are providing this guidance to other cities in Europe, to allow this transformation process. And for this, and if we are talking about transforming the cities, it's very, very important that we are able to involve all the stakeholders that have to be involved in this process. So we are talking about involving properly and from the very beginning the decision makers, the public administrators, the investors, the industry, and very, very important, and probably the main stakeholder that has to be involved are the citizens. That is what this Congress is about. So it's very important to provide the mechanisms to the city in order to involve the citizen and to make the people be the center of this transformation model, in order to be them leading the transformation of the city. So defining how they want the city to be and how they want the city to be transformed. So this is what Remo Urban is about, or more or less the overarching concepts in which we are working. And this is the whole map of projects that are funded by the European Commission, where you can see Remo Urban and many other initiatives in which we are working on demonstrating these actions in cities, and we are working along with other projects, for example, the Smart Cities Information System or other cross-cutting initiatives on those transversal or horizontal issues that in which all the projects are working. For example, standardizing, defining indicators to measure the actions or the results of these actions, or with the Smart Cities Information System to provide this information to a unique platform and to be somehow the center point for the cities in Europe to find this information and these results. And this is the map that is showing the cities in which we are working. We are in Remo Urban, 22 partners from 7 different countries, working on 3 lighthouse cities that are the cities of Valladolid in Spain, the city of Nottingham in United Kingdom, and the city of Tepebasi in Turkey, that are implementing specific actions in the fields of energy, mobility, and ICTs. And we have 2 follower cities that are the cities of Miskolc and Serene, that are following the process of the lighthouse cities and are defining how they can replicate the actions that are happening in the lighthouse cities. So our goal is then to generate this urban regeneration model, to demonstrate this urban regeneration model in our lighthouse cities, and to demonstrate that this urban regeneration model can be replicated in the follower cities and in other cities in Europe. And for this we are working, although there are many more fields of what we understand as a smart city, but we are working on these 3 fields that are energy actions in order to achieve low energy districts, implementing city transportation measures to achieve a sustainable urban mobility strategy for the city as a whole, and on integrating the existing city infrastructures through the information and communication technologies in order to provide services to the citizens with high added value, with all this data about I was talking before. So this is how the model looks like, and this is the theoretical part in which we are working, and the model that we are defining in order to be demonstrated in the cities. That is a 3-dimensional model that is defining how the temporal goals have to be implemented, starting from understanding how the city is during the city audit, and then deciding on which actions to implement, then implementing them, assessing them, and so on. Where we have a second dimension that is on the specific technologies that we can implement when talking about sustainable mobility technologies, about energy efficient technologies or integrated infrastructure technologies, and where we have a very, very important field that is the third dimension, that is about the enablers. So all these non-technical actions in which we can work in the cities in order to allow the implementation of these kind of actions and to transform the cities, where we are talking about management, about involving the citizens, the decision makers, and so on. We are working about evaluation, so how to evaluate during the different phases based on some specific indicators the status of the city throughout these phases, and we are talking about finance, so how to implement specific investment plans and specific business models in order to achieve these goals. So I will skip this one because I'm running out of time, and I will be focusing just on the actions that we are implementing and how are we demonstrating this model in the cities. So I was talking about three pillars, about the technical part, and I was talking about the non-technical part. So when it comes to the technical parts and talking about energy, mobility, and ICTs, for the first one, for energy, the main challenge that we are facing in all of our cities is about improving the energy efficiency of the buildings and on changing the energy resources, so changing the resources that these buildings are using to have these energy services. So for this, within Remo Urban, we are implementing in these three cities actions related to monitoring tools for energy, to district heating solutions, to distributed generation, to implementing renewable energy sources, implementing advanced building energy management systems in a combination of different solutions and combination of different technologies combined with specific business models, specific investment plans in order to achieve that districts can be more energy efficient and districts in which we are changing the resource of energy that we are using. And here you can see some of the examples of these implementations that we are already implementing in our cities. For example, we are talking about energy retrofitting of the buildings, so the building envelope. We are talking about actions related to low temperature district heating, for example, implementing photovoltaics in facades, in roofs, in order to be part of this district energy system, and so on. When talking about sustainable mobility, our main challenge here is to change the existing culture of urban transport in the city, because we have at the end the same problems in all of our cities, and for this we are working mainly in implementing electromobility related actions, so improving the existing fleet of electrical vehicles in the cities for public and for private transport, providing the needed infrastructure to charge all these vehicles, and working on implementing clean vehicles for the logistics in the cities, so for last mile delivery services and so on. And here are some of these actions where we can see examples of car sharing solutions with electrical vehicles, ultra fast charging solutions for electrical buses, and bike sharing services based on electrical bikes. And when talking about ICTs, our challenge here is to integrate the existing infrastructures in the cities in order to provide urban platforms and platforms for the city in order to allow the citizens have access to all this data that we are gathering and to have access to high added value services for them. And for this we are working in this kind of architecture in which we are integrating the different sources and the different monitoring services and controlling services that we have for energy and for mobility in the cities to gather all this data, to standardize all this data following a common taxonomy and a common modeling system, and then providing all this data to third parties in order to develop services for the citizens. So implementing all this kind of architecture. And then just to finalize, because I'm out of time, about the most important part that I was mentioning before, that is about this non-technical field. Here there is a very important work to be done on how to involve the decision makers, how to involve the different stakeholders, how to provide investment plans and business models, but especially, and very, very important, working on providing the channels and the proper tools in order to engage the citizens in this decision-making process. And for this we are working in these three levels in order to provide the mechanisms for all these levels, but trying to concentrate our actions on providing the specific tools and channels for the last of the levels, for the higher level, in which we are actually empowering and we are co-creating with the citizen all these solutions that we are implementing for mobility and for energy. So I think I will finalize with this. I'm sorry because I'm without time. So thank you very much for your attention. We have an stand in which we are showing renewable and all these lighthouse projects that is well close to the entrance. So you can find more information about our project and the other projects that are working on implementing similar actions in our stand. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Miguel. Please, Eduard, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Eduard Oró. I'm working in the Catalonia Institute for Energy Research here in Barcelona. What I'm going to do is, it's a tough because I'm going to explain 3 years working in 10 minutes, so it's difficult to do. But in any case, okay, this is the presentation. First of all, I will introduce myself and my institution. Then I will present why we are investigating in green IT and why it's so important, and then I just give you a few messages of what we have done in the framework of the Renew IT. The Renew IT project is a EU-funded project, FP7, in the smart cities call, so it's really related with what we have seen in the previous. I'm sorry. Okay. So I'm coming from IREC. IREC basically is divided in two main groups. One is focused on the basic research, but I'm from the other group. So from ECOS, which is the energy efficiency investigation in system buildings and communities. And I'm sorry about that, it's annoying. And in particular, I'm from the Thermal Energy and Building Performance Group. Here, basically, we are focusing on studying energy efficiency implementation and the use of renewables in different applications, from buildings to data centers. And in this case, I'm going to focus on data centers. Why green IT? So the previous colleague has explained, and we are in this Expo. There are a lot of Internet of Things, smart cities, etc., etc. Everything is in the cloud, but the cloud, it's nothing else than a data center. And a data center is nothing else than an infrastructure that consumes huge amount of energy, both electricity and cooling energy. So just to give you an idea, if we put all the data centers in one island, in one country, it would be the 6th energy consumer in the world. So we are facing a new problem, and we need to put money, we need to put researchers there in order to build up greener data centers. But as I said before, data centers also aim for a complex installation, not only for the power supply, but also for the refrigeration. Just to give you an idea why they claim for redundancy and so on and so on. For instance, if one bank just crashes its data center for 1 hour, I think that it's like 1 second, it's 10 million euros that they lose automatically. So they need for redundancy, they need to put, let's say, one server with 2 supplies lines for power, with 2 chillers, etc. And that means that the energy efficiency of the data center decreases. So for that reason, we need to set up and implement energy efficiency strategies in this kind of installations. And the other thing that I think is interesting to talk about is the heat reuse. So data centers nowadays, some of them are outside the cities, okay, but many of them are small and inside the cities. And we have to think the best integration between data centers and smart cities. And one thing that now we are, not only us, we are trying to investigate in more depth, but also the Commission, is to try to reuse all this waste heat from data centers and just use it in other applications. We can use it, we can connect data centers through a heat pump to a district heating, or we just can connect through a heat exchanger, and we can solve this heat to near door hotel, whatever. Okay. So Renew IT, it's the project that I mentioned before, try to investigate this overall problem. Okay. The basic aim of the Renew IT project is to develop simulation tools that can help people. When I say people, can means data center operators, but also can means researchers, can means people interested in smart cities, etc. So can help those kind of segmentation or the target market to evaluate in both ways, in energy perspective and economy, what happens if I implement some energy efficiency in the data center, or what happens in terms of money and energy if I implement on-site renewables to my data center, etc. Okay? So this is the basic concept of our project. It's not only to implement on the roof of my data center PV panels. No, for that reason, we are going really much in depth about that. So we are thinking the data center in a holistic problem. So not only IT, it's one key parameter. It's weather, the interaction with district heating and cooling, etc. Okay. And here is what we have done in order to have this final Renew IT tool, which is nowadays available online. First of all, we studied during more than 12 months different energy concepts. So how we can implement or how we can supply green electricity and green cooling to the data center. Okay, we sat down and we just designed many different systems. Okay. Then in parallel, we also investigated what happened with the IT load. So at the end of the day, I have an infrastructure, and some enterprises paying me just to put their racks, and they are playing with the racks, or they are managing data, etc., etc. So what can I do as data center operator to balance this IT and to, for instance, to consume or to run the service when I really like to do? The other thing is the monitoring and metrics. So here it's also important. What do I want to measure? Which kind of KPIs? We need to also sit down with other projects in order to build up new metrics, because, for instance, there wasn't metric for heat reuse in data centers. So we just sat down and just write down different metrics for this case. Then we have also the advanced energy modeling, which at the end of the day, it's the sum of all the other results. And here we just simulate many different systems and pick up the best energy systems for the integration of data centers. So just to give you another idea about what I have been talking about, it just defining different energy models, like data center connected to the district heating and cooling in order to reduce heat, or just connected to a wet cooling tower, etc., etc. About the metrics, about the IT load. So this is an easy example. So imagine that I have a production of PV on like this one, but I have no control to the IT load. What I can do is control the IT load in order to fit the demand, so the IT load with the green production, okay? And then finally, we just model all the systems. We pick up the parameters that really affect the results, and we did a meta-modeling. So meta-modeling just easy models that tries to behave like the real models in order to implement them in the Renew IT tool. I don't have time to go through the Renew IT tool, so I encourage you to go to the tool. It's free. You don't need to put any data, so it's up to you. Basically, what we are doing here is the graphical user interface asks you for basic data from your data center or for the data center that you want to analyze, like location, IT capacity, etc. Then we ask you which kind of system do you want to implement, which kind of energy efficiency strategies do you want to implement, both thermal, electrical, etc. And then we just calculate using the meta models and we present you the results. And this loop can be done up to 5 times in order to compare different locations between each other, different strategies of IT workload, etc., etc. So I'm running out of time. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks. Thanks, Eduard, for this interesting presentation. Let's hear Vera's project.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by saying that a renewed customer focus is reshaping the utility sector, and consumer engagement is key to unlock smart grids potential. So utilities are seeking nowadays for new end-user engagement schemes and methods that represent and will allow for the utility to understand the new challenges that we will be facing in a very near future ahead. And I started today my presentation saying this because the main theme of today and these days is citizens for citizens here in the Smart Expo Barcelona, but in the other event, in the Utility Week, I was not expecting from so many people, even in the opening session, talking about consumers and customers, and well, I'm very glad that we can work together and manage a way and a path where citizens and utilities can meet together. So this approach and these challenges are defying the DSO traditional role as data manager and market facilitator. Because today we need to have concerns not only about quality of service, our traditional concerns, but also about new engagement methods like Miguel was saying in his presentation, in order to get people and the community involved. And the key purpose of my presentation here today is to share with you some results and key insights, learnings from methods and on end-user engagement schemes developed by the S3SHIP project, and mainly with also the key results from the application on the InnovGrid Smart Grid project from EDP Distribuição, the national Portuguese DSO. So, how can we assist this smart transformation? How can we empower people for the smart energy system of the future? This is the big question for today, and for this question, the S3SHIP project tried to deliver the proper answers. The project provided a better understanding on the long-term engagement schemes with end users to promote a smart energy behavior towards the energy future system, the system that we want all to reach there. And the S3SHIP provided a toolkit ready to use, not only for utilities, but also for city planners, citizens in general, for customers, in order to understand that everybody here today present in this room has a key role and can play a very important and meaningful role in this future that we want to build. So the S3SHIP project paves the ways for the long-term and user interaction schemes, basically by acknowledging that the rule one size does not fit all also applies to end user energy end user of the energy system of the future, because we are talking about the human nature. And when we talk about human nature, fortunately, this means that each one of our convenient interests might be different from the neighbor or from the colleague that is seated next to you. So, based the rule that one size does not fit all, we utilities, I'm representing the Portuguese DSO, need to understand and to cope that different user needs exist. And saying this, in the S3C, we addressed the end user on a three-dimensional role. First, the smart consumer who wants only to reduce the consumptions and the costs. It's a selfish person, and it only has concerns regarding its own interests. Obviously, is the most passive role in these three dimensions that we delivered in the project, and now you are able at this point to understand the name of the project, S3C. The other role that we addressed for the end user is the smart customer. The smart customer also follows eye-centered needs, but wants also to become a prosumer, wants also to provide to the market new services, and wants also to become a more proactive agent in the market and in the energy system. At last, we have the smart citizen, much more focused, we-centered needs. It's the person that has environmental concerns and wants and aims to have feelings, very positive feelings, regarding the belonging to a smart community, a green smart community. So following these three dimensions that we first identified in the S3C project, we also analyzed 9 key challenges in end-user engagement. So it was a theoretical and research work that we have made with more than 11 partners. These partners were all involved in smart grid projects, and for sure in projects that the concerning with the end user activation schemes played a very important role. And we identified challenges from understanding the target group to new products and services, end user feedback, also a very important communication instrument, like Miguel also was saying. Communication is quite different from involving. Passing through other key challenges like cooperation between stakeholders or even new market structures. So with this extensive research, and it was quite difficult to identify only these 9, but with this extensive research, we were able to deliver one of the most important results of this project, that it is a toolkit ready to use, toolkit for utilities, for citizens, for city developers, for other project managers, for local government. I'm not sure if, besides my colleague, if we have a local government presence in the room, but we developed these guidelines that are in a short way, guides containing descriptive information on what kind of issues or matters you have to reach when you try to develop a smart energy project in a community. and questions that for sure you have to take into account. So this is an opportunity to learn with other people's mistakes. So please go and visit the website. You have the link shared. And tools are most kind of quick wins, quick steps and indications in order to promote this end user engagement towards the smart energy usage. So what we did next for EDP Distribuição as a regulated company who operates on under a concession regime was to pick up from the old toolkit the best guidelines and tools that were most suited to apply, validate and test in our own national dimension. So we selected and grouped them in 4 big initiatives, from a gamification initiative who had the key objective to engage community in a playful way, to understand what people learn at that moment about smart grids and energy efficiency, and also very important to understand if gamification instruments could be able to promote an effective call for action. Regarding stakeholders' engagement, our key objective was to foster stakeholders' engagement with InnovGrid project and to evaluate the awareness of the communities where we were making the deployment of the Smart Grid project, with several initiatives that we developed and were from exhibitions to the presence in local media to small informations in parishes, and we wanted to evaluate. Very quickly, regarding home energy management systems, another buzzword for this year, we just wanted to identify why the users would contract this kind of service, and about our backbone activity like meter installation, we wanted to gain some additional insights in how to keep a continuous improvement in the process. And the conclusions were very interesting, because regarding gamification, we quickly understood that people were able to act in a more sustainable behavior if they could have information that was meaningful for them, that it was clear, light, and updated for sure. And it was very interesting also from my company's perspective that 82% of the users would recommend a national rollout. So this is key recommendations for the DSO. Regarding stakeholders' engagement, I think it's, to be very brief, we can discuss later on, it's a matter of having communication support all over the time in a very frequent way. So people have to be assessed with information regularly in time. Home energy management system is perceived as a value-added service, and regarding meter installation, people also ask us to be very clear and systematic in our information. So, concluding, because I'm completely out of time, I would like to say that these kind of activities of the involvement of communities and sharing with the shareholders of the cities key innovations for the future have completely to call for action for every stakeholders involved in these areas. We have to define common approaches between policymakers, utilities, consumers, everybody around this area who matters for the final results, for sure. For the DSO perspective, we should go beyond the grid-only services, for sure. This is a long path that we have to run. And the early involvement of community in a bottom-up approach, the better for your smart grid project, if you want to succeed and to have people like real human people like these that you can assist, and that were able to run in the gamification quiz for a full 12 weeks contests. And this kind of relationships, it's very important because the DSO is not traditional competent in this kind of soft skills in communication and marketing activities, but a platform like gamification also requires very strong IT competences and reinforces our role as data provider to consumers and to the new market players, and this also impacts everyone's life here present. So thank you very much for your attention. Sorry for passing the time.
Thank you very much to all of our panelists. Now we have some 10 minutes for the questions and discussion with our audience. We have here first question, and I encourage you also to ask for a mic and to pose the question directly. So the first question we have is, what is the main challenge grids using fossil fuels face when transitioning to clean energy? Somehow it's a question, I understand, focusing on power grids. We have just one utility here in the panel, and Vera talked to us about customer engagement, not about the typical utility stuff. But well, let's take this question, and I don't know, Santiago, what's your opinion as a representative of Ministry of Mexico?
I think it's a very interesting question, especially for a country like Mexico, in which you just have one public utility, and in the process of transition, if you just had that utility staying in the market, it would be very different. Now, for the case of Mexico, because of the energy reform, the Federal Commission for Electricity has to change his business model. The way CFE has to face the use of fossil fuels will have to do with regulation first. The way the market is going to be regulated will be completely different to the way it was before, and it will have to face competition from other utilities coming into the market. But the fact that there will be a minimum of clean energy expected in the market will also change the way the utilities will have to look into it. In addition to regulation, I guess that the technology cost is also an important issue to consider. And the third issue, I guess, in emerging economies is also the availability of the human capital in order to implement this kind of technologies or grids. If the countries are used to using coal or just having coal plants, if they are willing to take advantage of the new technologies and they might have the financing available for implementing these technologies, sometimes there may not be the human capital to do it. So I'll leave it there, and I'll allow for my colleagues to jump in and say some more things.
Okay. Would you like eventually to comment, Vera? Or it's also, you told us that you have a special program for storage, so this is also kind of technological answer to this question, because that storage question is also very important. But Vera,
I think it's working. Okay. Well, last year, I think it was last year, I think, or probably, no, 2016, sorry, too many lights. This year, Portugal was able to have all the country working is in business as usual with energy powered by the renewable sources. So from my selfish and perspective, and I'm positioned in the smart consumer, I want to become a prosumer. I want to have the capability to, if I desire, to have the instruments and the technology supplied by the DSO in order to have the secure connection to the grid. But if I want to have the capability to be independent and produce my own energy and to contribute to a more sustainable environment. But also, I prefer a much more demanding role in asking the retailers and the governments, also the governments are very important, to provide me new flexibility services and real value-added services. For instance, Eduard's presentation was very interesting from the point of view of data services, but what real people, people that probably are not here present today, but represent a lot of people who live in the cities want, it's not energy or reduction on the consumption. They want comfort. They want quality of life. So I think we have to rethink the main questions from what should be the future of the power plants into much more a kind of aspirational objectives and fulfilling the quality of life of Europe's citizens.
Okay, but do you mean, I mean, you say European citizens, why not world citizens? Can we extrapolate this to all the world, while just Europe?
Sure.
And talking about comfort, can we...
Scalability for sure, and even knowing that each community has its own characteristics and environments, I think the needs for safety and for comfort are shared with everybody.
But do you think that we eventually need to redefine what is comfort?
I think that everybody here has its own capability to understand that comfort is when you are able to feel secure because the system is working. So I think that's the most important thing to ensure on a first basis. But then you have to build the house and have a step ahead in what should be the expectations from the society towards a real smarter future, towards where the IT integration real works on citizens' benefits and how impact a way of living much easier, not more complicated or more expensive, because it's also a very important question to have in mind. But basically, I think that's it.
Okay, thanks. Miguel, can you explain us a bit about your approach to the comfort in Remo Urban project? Is it challenged, the question of comfort, or is it just like conventional approach?
Yeah, is it working? Yeah. Yeah, well, the challenge of comfort, well, it depends on what we are talking about comfort. About comfort in buildings is not the same about comfort regarding mobility and so on. At the end, I agree with your definition that is about feeling secure and feeling that you have the availability of use, well, the systems, the services that you need in order to somehow feel comfortable. So when talking about mobility, people want, well, to have a good frequency of public mobility. They want to have, well, they the infrastructures. When talking about buildings, it's quite challenging because, well, sometimes having a high level of comfort means spending more on energy. And sometimes when implementing this kind of projects, not in remote urban, because we are just now starting with implementations, but in other projects in which we have been retrofitting large-scale buildings or districts, it happened that at the end, well, when implementing all the actions and achieving higher level of comfort, they were spending more money in having this high level of comforts. No, so it's sometimes it's difficult for the people to understand these kind of things, and it's challenging to explain all these things and to convince them about this. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from our audience. I'm afraid it's also for Santiago, because the question is, how does the government promote the use of renewable energies in a country which has large amount of cheap petrol? I don't know whether Mexican petrol is cheap, but there is petrol.
Well, Mexico has a great potential in hydrocarbons, as the person who is asking these questions is saying, but it also has a great potential in renewables. We have a lot of potential in solar generation. We have a lot of potential in geothermal. We have a lot of potential in wind. We have a lot of potential in hydro. So Mexico is a very energetic country. I guess that the most important element of this in terms of answering the question is to have an accountable, transparent, and certain regulation. You need to have a clear regulation that allows you for getting into the market as a consumer, as a prosumer, or even as a producer, if you will. We also provide government incentives. We have an energy transition fund that allows for the development of specific projects, so that's also important. And we have an innovation fund that also allows for research centers to come up with innovative ideas, with innovative research, development, and innovation projects that allow for the inclusion of renewables in the energy matrix. So that's what I would say, and I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are running out of time, so let me just wrap up a bit our session. From my perspective, I would say that there are three very interesting kind of conclusions or common ground from our exciting presentation from today. I would say it's clear that all our panelists are talking about multi-technology, so there's no silver bullet for solving energy issues in the world. In the second place, I would say it's very interesting the use of new tools and indicators, benchmarking. I mean, we heard about different options also for different applications, but even for the same applications as general city. And finally, of course, the importance of the end user or citizen, which is evidently the key player of all the issue about the energy efficiency and taking this way to the cleaner energy systems. So thank you very much for your patience, and I hope you enjoy this panel. Thanks.